All right, can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up. Perfect, sounds good. We had some minor technical difficulties, but I think I got it figured out. So 6 o'clock on the hour, so we will kick this thing off. Just want to show our appreciation, mention our appreciation for everybody who is tuning in here. Super excited to do another one of these webinars. Hopefully you guys have checked out the first two of these. If not, toward the end, I'll let you know how you can go back and rewatch and review the couple first ones that we did with Huntin Fool. Couple quick reminders before we kind of dive in here. So actually, I'll kind of run through the structure real quick. So we're going to do a few announcements, some intros from everybody on the call, and then we're going to go through some Colorado application specific information details. The Huntin Fool team is going to break those down, overload you with a ton of awesome knowledge. That should last 20 to 30 minutes or something like that. And then we're going to dive from there into a hunt consultation. So we have the folks with Born and Raised Outdoors here, myself and a few of them, Trent, Steve, and then I believe Eric from Born and Raised Outdoors. We're planning on going to Colorado this year for the very first time to hunt mule deer. They have hunted Colorado before for elk, as you've probably seen in some videos, but we're planning on doing a mule deer trip down there. None of us have ever hunted Colorado for mule deer, so we are going to pick Huntin Fool's brain on where we can hunt, what we should be looking for, what to expect, and really just kind of plan our hunt as much as we can on this call. Hopes that you guys pick up some really good info along the way as well. So we're going to dive into that. That'll probably last 20 to 30 minutes as well, followed by some Q&A. So we will get to the Q&A at the end. So if you have Colorado specific questions for Huntin Fool or want to ask Trent or Steve with Born and Raised Outdoors, anything on their end, lots of stuff at the end. A few other real quick things. So if you're leaving a question, make sure that you are using the Q&A function at the bottom and not the chat. We will pull questions from the Q&A. Also, reminder, just keep it respectful. Everybody's here to, have a good night, learn a ton about Colorado. Keep the comments respectful. And also, if we don't answer your question live, we'll do our best to answer it in the chat or after the fact as well. The first couple ones, we had quite a few folks asking OnX account information on the webinar. Make sure if you're going to do that, email help@onxmaps.com. Just a lot better way to get those questions answered. Couple more. So we're doing a giveaway at the end of this, and then we're also going to send out a survey and asking you feedback. So webinars are relatively new for us at OnX, and we're really excited. We have a bunch more of these planned. Actually, we're working on one with Born and Raised Outdoors coming up about calling and elk hunting strategy and things like that. So we're going to send you out a questionnaire. Just if you could fill that out, let us know what we're doing good on these, what you guys want to see moving forward. That would help us out a ton. Final one. So if you are watching this after it is live, so if you're watching this on YouTube after March 22nd, the giveaway we're going to go through at the end is already closed. We've gotten a few questions about that in previous ones, folks watching it on YouTube asking how they can be entered and so on and so forth. So if you are watching it after today, March 22nd live, that will be closed. So if we want to kick it to the next slide, we'll hammer through some intros and get rolling. Cool. So I'll kick it off. Dylan Dowson with OnX Hunt. So I've been with OnX for almost 7 years now, in between 6.5, 7 years. And yes, it's been a pretty awesome ride. I started out in customer service. So again, good chance if back in the day when you had the chip, if you had any issues, you probably called. Great chance that you spoke with me about, anywhere between 5 to 7 years ago. So now I manage a lot of the Western big game marketing here at OnX. Very fortunate to work with folks like the folks at Huntin Fool, and then also like the folks at Born and Raised Outdoors, and get to jump on webinars and talk about hunting. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I do here at OnX, and I'll kind of kick it around the room. It looks like Isaiah, you're next if we're going clockwise.
All right. I'm Isaiah Joner. I've been with Huntin Fool for 5.5 years, relocated down here from Montana. I've been managing our outfitter department primarily over the course of the 5 years. And then I will help out with consulting calls on Montana, Idaho, basic questions on those states that I'm familiar with. So I'm not an expert like Garth Jensen here is at Colorado, but we all have good knowledge with various states across the West. So great team to work with. Excited to be here tonight.
Austin Atkinson here. I work full-time at Huntin Fool. I've been for about 7 years. I'm married, have 6 children, and they're all very tiny, not hunting yet. But someday we're going to take over the West with plenty of tags and plenty of little blonde kids running around.
I'm Garth Jensen. I think I've been here the longest, but I didn't know I'd been here that long until I heard how long these guys have been here. I think I've been here about 8 years now. But yeah, I mostly do consulting, writing a lot of state section, a lot of information in the magazine. Dip my toe into outfitter a little bit, but yeah, I mean, just excited to be here and excited to talk Colorado.
Next up.
Perfect. If you want to unmute and kick it off, Trent.
This mute unmute thing's just killing me already. I'm already far behind here. Trent Fisher. We established Born and Raised Outdoors, I don't know how many years ago, probably 15 years ago, and started filming our hunts, and just because we saw a need for on the Roosevelt side of the mountain, and it just hadn't been done, and so that just kind of catapulted us into filming more stuff. And then just the last 4.5 years, I've actually went full time at doing this. And even though we've been doing a long time, and anyway, got a family, is a wife and 2 kids, and yeah, we just love the outdoors, and trying to bring cool stuff and getting people kind of outside their comfort zone as far as maybe doing something that they didn't think that they could do, and showing that, going on adventures of stuff that we just, throw a dart at a map a lot of times, and go make it happen, and trying to open up those doors for other people too. So, Steven?
I'm Steve Howard, born and raised outdoors. Been 13, 14 years now we've been doing this, and I did my first out-of-state hunt, I think it was about 2002, and probably a year or two after that. It's been about 15, 16 years now. I've been applying all across the western states for out-of-state hunts, just new adventures, exploring. Got Trent and the guys started back in when we did our first one, 2010,
Out of the
11.
state? Oh yeah, Wyoming. We did Wyoming in 11.
But yeah, so married, 3 girls, and having a blast. It's been awesome.
Awesome. We'll kick it off. So I've got a couple slides here, and then I'll hand it over to the folks at Huntin Fool. So if for those of you guys on this call who maybe haven't seen exactly what we're doing with Huntin Fool, so as of right now, an OnX Hunt Elite member gets a free digital membership to Huntin Fool. So that entails a lot of different things, from an e-magazine, so the magazine they actually print and mail out. You can actually view that right on your phone, on the computer, in the e-magazine format, packed full of ton of knowledge there. So a lot of what we're going to go through tonight is an example of the information that you're going to get in those magazines. I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's not your standard hunting magazine. They've got some really cool hunting articles that will get you excited for the year, and things like that, but they do a really good job at breaking down each state, what they entail. And somebody like myself, who I've been a Montana resident my whole life, tons of opportunity here in Montana. So I haven't really ventured out to too many states. And it's always really daunting to look at a new state and trying to figure it out. if I read through the e-magazine with that particular state in there, it breaks down everything. All I have to do is read an article, and I'm way farther down the learning curve than what I was before. So really suggest that. They also have a few other things, previous tag holder list. If I draw a special tag or any tag, really, I can go on there, see if I can get in touch with folks who have hunted that particular unit, that tag before, which can be really helpful. They work a lot with outfitters. They do some really amazing hunt giveaways, draw cost calculator, you name it, they have it. So all you have to do, again, is be an OnX Hunt Elite member, and we will drop the link in the chat for the page where you can go learn more about that, get signed up. If you're not taking advantage of that, you should. It's a huge value add. And then also, so this is the third masterclass of a series of 3 we've done with Huntin Fool. The first one was kind of an overarching approach to building your Western hunt strategy. You can find it on the OnX Hunt YouTube and give that a watch. Super awesome information for pretty much all the Western states. The next one, we did a elk specific application kind of deep dive. Dan Staten with Elk Shape was on that one. Go give that one a watch, also on our OnX Hunt YouTube. And then obviously the one we have going now live right now, everybody's watching it live. It will also go on YouTube after. So we get that question a lot. We kind of breeze through a ton of information here, and you can go on YouTube later, rewatch it, pause the screen on the slide that you need more information, take a screenshot, do whatever you need to do there. So yeah, excited for kind of rounding out the third one here, and I'm sure we'll schedule a few more. All right, so next thing before I kick it off. So if you're not familiar, this year, we took all of the layers that we have, and we actually made a Western application research folder within OnX Hunt. So you can find this right now. It's in the app, it's on the web version. And we took all the different layers that we thought was beneficial for application season. And we tailored a few, we tweaked a few, we even added a couple of those as well. So we got historic wildfires in there. Obviously that's going to be beneficial, so you can see, what burned last year. That might help determine if you apply for a tag, maybe you don't. So historic wildfires, we have current drought conditions. So that one's a really interesting one. That's a new layer for us. You can see the current drought conditions for those areas to see if that, again, maybe you want to apply for that area because where some really good water sources are. Maybe you don't want to apply, but just different layers and different data that will help you figure out where you're going to apply. We work with Boone and Crockett, so we do trophy big game records. We also do some additional stuff with the application research folder for elk, mule deer, and antelope. And then we have an elk and deer distribution map on there, just kind of showing some major travel routes, wintering ranges, that type of thing. That can help you out as well. We also show wilderness area. Wyoming's a big one for that, obviously. If you're a non-resident, you're not going to hunt wilderness. So if I'm looking at Wyoming specifically, I'm going to pull that up, take a look. Is most of that unit wilderness? Is, where's my access? Where can I hunt? Where can I not? So if you haven't checked that one out, check it out under your layer library. And with that, I will kick it off to Huntin Fool.
Thanks, Dylan. Well, tonight we wanted to talk about all things Colorado. And I think it's important to say when Huntin Fool approaches a state with our information, generally it's from a non-resident perspective. We help non-residents navigate all these states. And so a lot of the data we're going to talk about and draw and costs come from that non-resident perspective. If you are a resident of Colorado, hopefully we can give you a ton of good information that'll help you out as well, but realize it's going to be substantially cheaper and draw odds are going to be substantially better if you're a resident to obtain these tags. But Colorado boasts a giant elk herd, of course, but there's a lot of other nuances that go into obtaining the licenses and going through the draws that we're going to break them down step by step. And of course, we have a lot more information to back this up on our website and in personal consultations we can give you. But basics first, I think we wanted to talk about our deadline is coming up. So the primary draw for Colorado, the deadline is April 5th, 2022. That's at 8 p.m. So you have to create an account at CPW Shop. It's tied to your Colorado ID, has a password. That is how you apply. Now we have to buy a small game license or a qualifying license, if you will, to be able to apply in this primary draw. Everything in Colorado is called a license. It's not like a hunting license, tag, permit, like some other states you may be familiar with. Everything is a license. So you buy a qualifying license for an adult, it's just over $97. And then each species application is just over $9 per species to apply. Back in the day, we used to have to front the whole cost of the license, not a thing anymore. The only other fee after you apply is if you apply for sheep, moose, or goat, there's a $100 preference point fee that you can choose to opt in or not. And that fee will come out later on your card. Unless you're a youth. If you look over at my youth costs, it's waived for all youth. So your small game license drops to about $1. Your species application is still the same, but no point fees for youth. So very cheap if you've got a youth ages 12 to 18 to apply there.
Got to get them in on that. That's like cheating.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, we're going to kind of go species by species. We're going to focus, of course, more on deer and elk on this, but let's talk about the weighted draw. So we have a preference draw and a weighted draw. The basic way to think of it for your weighted draw species, which are Rocky sheep, Shiras moose, and mountain goat, is you must have 3 preference points. That's kind of like your entry level. You got to build those 3 years of points before you're even considered in the draw. Then after that, each year you get what's called a weighted point, which functions like a bonus point and gives you extra chances. So you have to get that prerequisite before you're considered. Now, what you can do once you get to 3 preference points, you can opt out of paying that $100 point fee every year and save yourself $300 if you're applying for all 3 species. You're still considered in the random draw. You just don't get those extra chances that they give you with your weighted points that you would have if you continued to buy it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's really no guarantee. There's no maximum point draw. It's a weighted draw is how they run it.
I've got a question, Austin, on that real quick. So weighted points, I'm in Montana, I'm used to, we square our bonus points, right? Is that like, do you square those or anything like that? Is it just like one additional chance? What does that look like?
There's a whole document, Dylan, about how Colorado Parks and Wildlife functions their weighted draw, where they divide your application number by your points. Essentially, what you're trying to do when we've run all of our draw simulations is get the lowest random number to get the tag. And the more weighted points you have, the better odds you have of that. But it's not an exponential growth like if it was squared. So your odds get better, but not a lot better. And that's where you have to ask yourself, is this worth the $100 point fee for me? Or do I just want to say, I'm in the hat, I got a shot, and move on?
Yeah, when you run those draw sequences and you look at it, I mean, you can have 2 weighted points and then punch in 8 weighted points and you gain maybe a percent. Maybe a percent.
Yeah.
So for another $600, is it worth a percent?
Yeah. So me personally, like I really want a Rocky sheep tag, but do I pay the point fee now that I'm at 3 preference points? No, I do not. I would rather take that $100 and throw it at another state's draw to keep my budget a little more sane.
Yep.
It just depends if you're married. or
So
not.
I'll touch on, go ahead.
It just depends if you're married or not, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Or you want to stay married.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I'll jump into the preference draw, and we get a question on this all the time is preference and bonus. And preference, basically, bottom line is if you either have the amount of points to draw or you don't. If you have under the amount of points it took to draw that specific hunt, you have 0 chance of drawing it. And it just all depends on how many people apply for that hunt with the amount of points. If you get it, like if you got enough points, you'll get it. If not, then you're completely out. There's no random. But it's a preference for elk, deer, and antelope. And the reason we put that caveat down in there for antelope, very few random licenses. They will have a hybrid draw for all of these based on an equation of how many points it took residents to draw. It's a whole different discussion, honestly. But in essence, because the elk and deer have a non-resident quota, they always hit that cap before they issue any random licenses or before they run that hybrid draw. So there's never any elk or deer random licenses available for those specific hunts. But antelope, where there's not a quota, they will sometimes catch a non-resident in the random draw. So, but it's only for the high point units that take a lot of points to draw. It's barely worth mentioning, but I know if I didn't, someone would call me on it.
I think it's important here to realize we hear all the time, I want an over-the-counter deer license in Colorado. Well, every deer license in Colorado is allocated through the draw. Yes, some of them will make it to the following draws or to the leftover where you could just purchase it, but there is not a over-the-counter option for these units, not even for archery. There is for elk and there is for antelope, but not for deer.
Yeah, in antelope, it's only archery, where elk, you have obviously some rifle hunts thrown in there that are over the counter, that are unlimited.
And just to touch on real quick, because it is a preference draw too, like guys that are looking to go outfitted, they know they're going to draw that tag. So outfitters tend to book up sooner because they can look at a guy's points and say, hey, this guy's going to draw. So be prepared to plan a year or two out, even though it's a outfitter rich state, even on the big three, moose, sheep, goat. You know, those guys are, it's not an outfitter rich state for those species. So, you know, if it's something you want to put in for and you're planning on going guided, just make sure to do the research or give us a call to figure out if there's an outfitter there that can accommodate you if you do draw that tag.
Yeah, we actually had outfitters this year that were putting point levels. They would not book a hunter and put money on the books for them to tie up a spot unless they had 2 points over what it took to draw last year.
Otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yep. So a couple things on the sequence of the draw. Let's see. April 5th, we talked about as your primary draw. Now this is a very important piece. If you've never applied in Colorado here, your points are only used if you draw your first choice on this primary draw. So what that allows you to do is apply for a point, a preference point as your first choice, and apply for, say, a guaranteed tag or something that's going to not be allocated to everyone's first choice as your second, third, or fourth choice. So you can continue to build points and draw easy to draw tags or licenses, but you must realize what you're doing there. If you draw your first choice, your points are gone, back to zero, no matter what.
Yeah.
They award everybody's first choice before they look at your second, third, or fourth. So this is not an instance where you need to make all your choices count. They're in order. Any tag that is not given out in the primary draw will come up in the secondary draw. That deadline this year is July 5th. So that is everything that didn't take many points for a resident to draw. They're going to cap that at 5. That's how they determine what goes in the secondary draw. You can apply in the secondary draw, pay your $9 again. All youth hunters do have preference. They take all the licenses before adults get any shot. And no points are affected. So it doesn't hurt you there. You know, even if you're banking a bunch of points and you see a license that you'd like come up on the secondary draw list, you can apply for it. Doesn't touch your points.
And the reason he mentioned the ones that don't take a lot of points is because some of those tags will be turned back in or reversed on their charges, or they don't pay for it by the pay by date. And then last year they started putting those back in that secondary draw. So that's you're kind of stealing a tag if you can get one of those.
Yeah. So what they're going to do with those harder to draw turn back tags, or they didn't pay for them, they're going to throw them in what we call leftover day. That's August 2nd this year. And that's when all remaining licenses that didn't get gobbled up in the draw, didn't get paid for, and all our over-the-counter opportunities go on sale. That's the first come, first serve. You got to try to crash their website and buy it before the next guy. And same day that all your elk tags go on sale, everything. That's a chaos.
Yep.
Is leftover day.
Don't pay any attention to that date. It's no good.
Does that start at like midnight, or do they have a time?
What is 10 a.m.?
I think it's like 10 a.m. or somewhere in the morning. Yeah, they don't. It'd be cool if it was midnight, but
They'll release the list before, so you can see the entire list of what's available. Check that list. If there's something that interests you, set the timers on your phone and try to log onto their website.
I think I tried 3 times this last year for tags there and got 0.
yeah.
Because what
So-
that kicks off is the reissued Wednesdays. And so this is kind of similar to the leftover day, but this will happen every single week. So in Colorado, you can return your license, get your points back. That happens a lot, especially with residents, turning their licenses back for any reason. You turn that back, they will process it, give us a list on Tuesday. Same thing, Wednesday morning, they go on sale at a licensed vendor if you're in the state, or first come, first serve online. No points are affected. So you could see any sort of license get returned here for any species, any reason. And if you grab it first, you pay for the license and it's yours.
Is there some
Again-
really, really good tags that go down in that the reissued Wednesday stuff, or is it usually pretty diluted by then?
Oh no, there's some phenomenal tags. They'll get put back in there, like really good tags that it's just, you got to be Johnny on the spot, king of the keyboard to get them down. And even if you are, a lot of times you don't get them.
Really?
But there is some really good tag. Like we've saw tags go on there that take excess of 20 plus points to get.
That was my next question is, do they revoke your points? Do you go back to 0 if you get one of those tags? If you get lucky
As
and
long-
and
No, if you pick it up for any reason, in that leftover reissued, it's your points are still intact. You can go hunting. I mean, they had a couple of years ago, they had a big fire in 61 and they allowed all those people to waive that 30-day time frame and they could turn their tag back in because it was such a big fire and it impacted their unit. There was a flood of 61 tags that got turned back in, which is a 22 to 27 point hunt. And they were just snaking them.
Wow.
I think our suggestion there, Trent, to your question is you have to look at the list and say, oh, that's a really sought after tag. I'm probably not going to waste my time on it like 500 other people are. And I'll pick something else that's maybe second or third choice on my list. And you may get it that morning when everyone's typing in the same code, trying to get the hardest to get one. Like that's where we want to sneak in and try to get something else.
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
a good point.
So I just set a reminder in my phone every Tuesday, check that list. If there's something that interests you, highlight it and go to the next day. If not, go to next week.
Yep.
Gotcha.
John?
Point creep. I'm sure everyone here has been a victim of this. If you've applied out of
yeah.
state.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed until I started applying in Wyoming. Yeah, so basically it is a real thing. We do get this call often. And basically it's where the demand exceeds the current supply each year. And so you'll have a unit that can bump a point, 2 points, 3 points, it just based off of how many people at what point level applied for it that year based off the previous year. So Colorado's a bad one because it is a true preference point state that if you're behind with as many people that are going after the same tags as you are, there's a good chance that you might never catch it. So it's a crisis.
Yeah. No, this last year, there was some of those units in Colorado for deer that there wasn't a point creep. It was a point long jump.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these went 7 points in 1 year. And
Whoa.
basically it was just everyone trying to jump in for the best unit for the best dates. And yeah, supply and demand.
No, and again, that's where, like Garth mentioned, like with outfitters, this has become an issue for them because, they'll have a guy that wants to apply, but he's right at that point level. Well, it's hard for them to sign a contract because there could be 4 other guys with 2-3 more points than he has jumping in for that same tag. So just remember in these true preference states that what you see your odds are for this year are not going to be the same for next year.
And guys, I think that goes into like you planning your hunt, that there you do not have that license until you draw it. I know that sounds super basic, but there's a preference point mantra here where I look at the draw odds. We've got some examples here where it says, oh, it drew at 3 points last year, unit 66, this example here. Well, that's not what it's going to draw out this year, because you're talking about, 100 people that didn't have that tag drawn that now just jumped up a point, and now they're going to apply next year with 1 more point or 2. And then you've also got guys sitting out that have been doing, like I said, points never applying in the draw. So you had no idea on the draw report that guy was interested in your hunt. And then all of a sudden he decided, I'm going to jump in and screw all the odds up, apply with my higher points, and take your tag. So that the amount of licenses available is very critical, looking at this point jump on how many people are going to jump the points up or down depending on application pressure.
Yeah. And honestly, like a lot of these low point units that people go in for, a lot of times they have a lot of licenses available. So you don't see as much point creep in those low point units or less demand units. And oftentimes you won't see really any at all. I mean, they might stay at 0, 1 to 2 points for 5, 7 years. So it just, when you get to those really sought after units or highly publicized units, that's where you really start seeing them jump up and up and up every single year. Yeah, and this is just an example that we used just to kind of demonstrate what we were talking about, where you can see in here, and this is just pulling it from the Colorado draw recap. You can see that this 76 drew out at that 15 point level. And this is these are non-resident residents, but we'll focus on the non-residents because there's fewer tags being issued. And that's where the point creep is more, exacerbated,
Yeah.
whatever, if that's a word. But you can see there's 47 applicants that went into that draw at 15 points that did not draw. Like 1 out of that 48 drew. I mean, the one above it's a little bit of an anomaly, and we see this sometimes. There's 15, but only 11 drew. That's probably because that was a party of 4, and it exceeded the amount of permits that was left. And so they dropped down to the next group, which they pulled 1 out of that 15 point category. But 47 of those that didn't draw last year are going to have 16 points this year. Well, there's only 45 tags available. And so at that point, yeah, that's going to jump up to 16 points. And then you're still going to have, like Austin alluded to, you're going to have this group of individuals that's been sitting out, writing points, or they were chasing down other units like 61 or something like that. They realize they can't get it. Now they just want to go hunting. They don't care at this point. So they drop into this unit because it's the next best unit around. And now all of a sudden that goes up to 16. The next year you have the same thing. It goes up to 17 and so on. So if you're sitting at 14 points and you're like, man, I'm going to ride that out for a couple more years and grab it. Nah, you're not. It's just going to keep outpacing you.
That's right.
Yeah,
we have the same system, and it's man, it's super frustrating, but it's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
Couple of things to jump back over to youth opportunities. I know there was a lot of questions. Should I apply my youth here? Is this a necessary state? Yeah, I mean, we're talking about you can build the 3 preliminary preference points for sheep, moose, and goat for under $30 a year for your youth hunters. So that's kind of a no-brainer, in my opinion, to apply your youth there. And if you want to start applying them for elk, deer, antelope hunts, it's substantially cheaper at just over $100 for their license when they draw your antelope. They need to be 11, turning 12 before December 31st this year to be eligible for points, or turning 12, during the season if you want them to go hunt. But if you've got a 12 to 18-year-old, I would put Colorado on the list because it's so cheap. You
Yeah.
almost can't not do it.
Oh, 100%. The amount of money you save compared to if you had to build those 3 weighted points for sheep, moose, and goat, $900
Yeah.
versus 30. I mean, that's
That's pretty good.
it's pretty good. 60, I guess.
Yeah,
90?
Yeah.
I can't add.
that's pretty crazy. I've got one question. So I have like under a 1-year-old right now, first kid. Is there any opportunities in Colorado to build points ahead of the curve, or do they have to have hunter safety first?
Yeah, they will not even be eligible until they're 11, turning 12 that calendar year to build points or do anything there.
Cool, got it.
So license return. So this is basically just kind of running down through kind of the process. And basically when we talk about turning your tag back in, you do have to submit it at least 30 days prior to the start of the season in order to either get a refund or get your points back for whatever you had going into the draw. They will not give you another point for that year's application, but you have to select one or the other, either a refund or that. And that's for your first choice only, obviously. Now, the cool thing is your second choice through your fourth choice, because you didn't use any points to get that tag, you can opt to get a full refund and you still have your points, obviously, because you didn't burn any points to draw that tag. And that's a question we get quite often. So that's kind of a unique situation, which is pretty cool, because then, I mean, you can put in and you draw a second choice, you're really not out anything. Like if you draw another tag somewhere else, and it's better than what you got over there as a second choice, you just turn that thing back in, get a refund. You already got your points. You go on your other hunt. So it's kind of nice. Group applications. The one different thing about Colorado, as opposed to a lot of other states, is when you go in as a group, most other states will average, and Colorado does not do that. So if you got a couple guys with 5 points and one guy with 1 point, everyone's got 1 point if you go in a party. So there's no averaging, but you can put as many people in your group as you want.
So I only shop for friends that have the same points as me.
Or greater.
Yeah, so that no one's dragging me down, right?
That's right.
Choose your friends wisely.
Yeah, I know we'll get into it in the consultation portion, but we are sitting at a little bit different point group. So we will have like 2 folks dragging the other 2 down, but it's not very much. So that's something we'll dive into in a bit.
So landowner vouchers, the one tricky thing about landowner vouchers, the good thing about Colorado is there's more landowner vouchers there than any other state. It's a plethora of them. There's one thing a couple things you got to be careful of. You have to make sure you're purchasing that landowner voucher directly from the landowner or the landowner manager, or that landowner voucher is null and void. If it's a third-party interaction that is not one of those two, you're in jeopardy. The other thing you have to be careful about is they have unit-wide vouchers and private land-only vouchers. And when you look at it from the Colorado, from how they put it, it's a non-restricted and a restricted. The non-restricted is the unit-wide and the restricted is the private land-only. So both of those are out there. So when you go to purchase a landowner voucher, number one, make sure you're buying it from either the landowner or the land manager of that property. And it is also whichever one you prefer. Obviously, the unit wide is going to cost a little more, but just make sure that's what it is.
Yeah, you will see, like, we list tags for ranchers in Colorado, but we are not, basically, they can show that on the front side, but if you do want to purchase that, you have to contact them directly. But you will see various companies all over that will basically have Colorado tags up for sale, but in order to purchase that, you have to go directly to the source.
Yep.
Now, does that allow you to hunt the whole unit or just the landowner's property? How's that work?
If it's a unit-wide voucher, you can hunt the entire unit for that season that voucher is valid for.
Okay.
And you can also hunt that landowner's property, at least the property that he used to secure that. We see a lot of times where you have big landowners that will have 5 different vouchers, but he uses different parcels of property to secure those vouchers. The only property it entitles you to hunt is the one that was directly connected to that voucher. Now, if it's a restricted one, you can only hunt private land only. And the only private land you have is what that landowner has tied to it, unless you go out and secure other property through getting permission and things like that.
So make sure definitely what you're agreeing to is what you're saying.
Yeah, make sure it's a unit-wide tag.
Yeah. And it's going to be priced based on whatever the demand is that landowner thinks he can get for it. So you still have to buy the license from the state. So you're buying just a voucher, which entitles you to buy a license. But if you buy an elk voucher for $1,000, you go to turn it into the state, you still have to pay the other $700 to get your elk license.
Oh,
So
okay.
consider that as well. You're not buying it outright. You're buying rights to purchase a license.
Yep.
Sorry, I was on mute there trying to talk. We actually just had a question coming in on this topic. So when do landowner tags get allocated to the landowners?
The same time as the draw. So they have to apply for these landowner vouchers the same time that the public has to apply for those hunts, and they run them through the exact same draw. So they take a certain portion of those licenses that are allocated for that specific hunt, and they set those aside for landowner vouchers. And so they won't know. I mean, they have a good idea, same thing as us, right? They have a preference point system in place, so they kind of know when they're going to get drawn, but they don't actually get that voucher until May, late May, early June.
Yeah. And that's when you'll see them start popping up for sale on these classified lists. Heck, we've seen them on everything from Craigslist to newspapers. And then we have that free listing service on our website on huntinfool.com, where you can see vouchers available for sale on there.
Yep.
Now we're going to jump into finding hunts a little bit. This starts kind of down our consultation funnel, if you will. So Colorado, a lot of these conversations come about, you need to find hunts that are at your point level. It's not a state where you can say, oh, the top is 30 points. I'm just going to wait 30 years and draw. No, you'll never catch it. That's not how it works. So we always suggest sorting the draw odds by the number of preference points it takes to draw. That's going to help you say, here's where I am, here's where I fit into the mix, and here's the band, if you will, of hunts that I could potentially get a tag in. Giving yourself a buffer, looking up or down a few points to know this is where I fit. But as the whole mass cruises up together on point creep, it can be hard to say, am I going to catch this, or should I just be happy with where I'm at? If your expectations are so high in Colorado for elk, for example, if you only want the biggest bulls in the West, like Colorado's probably not the state for you, because you're not going to be happy with the hunts you can draw unless you started 25 years ago.
Or 30.
Or 30. Yes. So always sort either on our website on huntinfool.com or Top Rut. You can sort by that draw odds column. It'll make it much easier to find the hunts you're capable of drawing, getting a permit for. Season date.
And then we just kind of run down through these season dates. And the main focus of this slide is just to showcase that even if you apply for a hunt that only has 50 elk tags or 50 deer tags, and you think, man, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of hunters in the field. Rest assured that if it's for a rifle season, like second, third, or fourth, you're going to probably have, if it's a deer license, you're going to probably have over-the-counter elk hunters all over the place in there. And the same thing could be said for a muzzleloader hunt. Like you could draw a muzzleloader hunt in a unit up there where there's 35 muzzleloader elk tags, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm going to have this place myself. Just know there's going to be an overlapping archery season with plenty of over-the-counter archery elk hunters and archery deer hunters hitting the field the same time you are. So that's just an important thing to make a note of.
And I think the season dates are also important to realize maybe the hunt you're wanting to draw someday, or the unit you want to hunt late season for deer. Maybe you can draw an early season muzzleloader elk tag or archery and go check out the same unit on different dates. You know, realize that the closer it gets to the rut, generally the harder it is to draw. So let's look outside of those parameters to find easier to draw licenses or other opportunities.
Real quick on that. So would you typically say like fourth season is hardest, then third, then second? Does it go in that order, or is third season hardest?
No, I would say that's accurate. Fourth season is typically harder than third. Third is typically harder than second. I mean, you have the rare occasion where you kind of have second and third line up, but yeah, I'd say that's about par. I mean, it goes opposite for elk, obviously, because the closer you get to the rut, you know, you're gonna have harder tags to draw when it gets earlier.
And when we start talking deer, Dylan, I mean, the majority of your permits or your licenses are going to be allocated in that second and third rifle window. There's going to be substantially less licenses during fourth rifle for deer than there would be for second or third. That's when the masses come out.
Okay.
And then just a little on weapons. I mean, when it comes to weapons restrictions, I mean, archery is very similar to other states. Any weapon, obviously, rifle hunts, not a big deal. Muzzleloader's a little bit different. When you get to muzzleloader, there is a difference in caliber. You have to have at least a 50 caliber or larger for elk. You can use a 45 caliber for deer or antelope. But the one thing is it's open sights, which means you can't have any type of magnification scope at all on there. And it has to be some type of bullet to bore, power belts work, conicals, but no sabots and loose powder too. But
Yeah.
all right. And so this is just kind of we're going to dive in to just talking to you guys and seeing what you guys are looking for. I was just going to we showed this a little bit just to say, these are a lot of questions that we like to get answered in a consultation so we can narrow down the best hunt that the client is looking for, what that person has in mind. And a lot of times, when we go into that, it's nice if they've already thought about these questions and figured them out in advance. If not, we kind of walk them through it, but it's just nice. These are some things to think about when you're trying to figure out and whittle down what you're trying to do.
Perfect.
So I think I'll ask the question.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I'll ask the question. We want to hear a little bit about what you guys are looking to do, your expectations, your goals, why Colorado, and let's start this process as if you're calling in to talk to the Huntin Fool advisors.
So we're
Perfect.
thinking probably like road hunt 190 plus, somewhere in that realm is kind of where we're comfortable with doing. That's what we're thinking. No,
That's perfect.
Good luck.
no, it's totally different than we've ever done before because it's going to be in the super. I mean, where we live, we're on the coast of Oregon, so I mean, cold here, is 40 degrees. We're talking where we're possibly going is going to be way colder, and so it just brings a bunch more elements, which is no big deal. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so we got to prep for, are we going to bivvy, or are we going to truck camp, or what are we going to do there, and how does that all come into play? That's why I think this is so exciting, because it's just out of our wheelhouse, and it's something that we can get excited for. So, and I know Dylan, I mean, he's hunted a bunch in Montana, and he'll be prepped for that kind of stuff. And we've hunted a few times in Montana as well, and just had a blast over there. But yeah, I would say, hiking's not an issue for us, and bivvying is, definitely an option. So, I mean, that would honestly, so in your guys' wheelhouse, probably just open up, a lot more country as far as roadless access, possible, wilderness stuff too. I don't know. I'm really curious to hear your guys' take on this.
And you guys were looking at a rifle hunt, is that right, Dylan?
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. And so I just want to point out we're like 48 minutes into this. We're gonna kind of run through this. Obviously, this won't be like as in depth, just for the many folks still on here. This won't be as in depth. We won't talk specific units or anything like that. We don't want to blow up. We don't want to exacerbate the problem of point creep in a unit, especially when we do go there this year and kill 190s out the pickup. So, I want to let folks know, like, we're going to dive in here, but we are probably going to take most of the call offline, dive in to specific units and really tailor it. We are going to get to Q&A. I know we planned on an hour for this. We always run a little bit over. So just know we are going to do Q&A. We will, get to that after this. Just wanted to let folks know. To answer your question, Garth, yes, rifle is the way we were leaning. To kind of go down the list here too, preference point. So 2 of us have 2 points, 2 of us have 3 points. So I know that puts us going in at 2 points as a party. So we'll have 4 people as a party, 2 with 2, 2 with 3.
So you guys have already selected who gets to sleep outside the tent then?
Me. I'll be one of the two.
So as far as like, do you guys have a preference on second or third? Does it matter that much to you guys versus the first of November versus middle of November?
We've already scheduled out third is what we kind of scheduled out already. Yeah, no, I guess if there is a better option in second, maybe that would be a game player. I'm not sure as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think we're open to either, Garth. Third would be preferred. Obviously, the dates are a little bit closer to rut, or the rut that I know in Montana. That being said, if you're like, man, if you do second, it opens you up to these units. Like, we could look at shuffling around some dates. Like, it's a little bit easier for me than these guys, so I would lean on Born and Raised to say, like, you know, can you guys do second season dates? And if we can, then look at that. But I'd say right now, open to either.
The next question I'd probably have is if there was an option, like how sure is it that you want to go hunting this year? Because obviously we talked about point creep in the past. You're probably going to have to apply for something that was 0 to 1 point last year. 1 point, depending on the percentage of draw with 1 point, you'll probably slide into that unit. And I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue because usually there's enough tags issued in those hunts or, you know, along those lines. Point creep isn't as much of an issue there, but then you have to decide, okay, is it worth it, or are we going to go for it? And maybe this is a lot better hunt that we could apply for it, a percentage like 60% at 2 points. Let's take a chance. If we get it, great. If not, we'll move on and go to the next year. And then we'll roll the dice then. So how sure are you that you absolutely want to go this year?
So I'll take that real quick. I think that's a good question. I would kind of ask a follow-up question. And honestly, Garth, the reason I'm really like kind of set on probably going this year for myself is talking with you and Robert and other folks there. It's like, with the way that they move the dates around and what's been happening, like, now's a great time to go. And honestly, just talking with all of you guys at Huntin Fool, I've always been that guy that's like, I'm going to keep buying bonus points. And once I get, 10 points, then I'll apply and get all these sweet tags. Talking with you guys who actually go on hunts and do this, and you're not just buying points. It's like Colorado to me, and I think I've heard you say this, or Robert, or a few folks, it's like Colorado is a state that the more you go, the better it is, because you might hit that weather window perfectly. It might be a great hunt. You might draw a 0 or 1 point tag and have an excellent hunt because the weather was right. If you can go more often, it's oftentimes better than going with more points less often. So for me, it's like, I want to hunt Colorado this year for those reasons. But I would kind of throw that back on you, is like, is this a good time to want to hunt Colorado and to settle for like a less point tag?
I'll be honest with you. The difference between a guaranteed hunt with 2 points and a percentage draw with 2 points is razor thin. So I would say if you want to go this year, it's a very wise decision to go this year for all those reasons you just stated. And the difference, it's not like you're going to reach up there and grab a hidden gem that's just going to be an immaculate hunt with 3 points that you couldn't have drawn with 2 points. So yeah, I would agree with that. And if you want to go, yep.
Cool. Yeah, I would say,
I think that
yes, go ahead.
No, I think that kind of plays into our hand too, as well. Like this last year, we burned a ton of points just in our home state of Oregon here as residents. Steve burned 22 and I burned 18 to get a tag last year. And don't get me wrong, we had great hunts, but man, I see buddies of mine that have 0. It's almost a curse having a bunch of points a little bit to chase something. And these guys are going on hunts every 3 years, whether it be muzzleloader or whatever, and having blast hunts. And we're like, nope, just sitting on my point. It's almost sometimes a curse rather than a blessing,
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I've been hunting over there since, I think, first time I went was 2001, and I've never built over 3 deer points in my life. And that was just because I thought I was going to draw and I didn't draw and got to 3 points. It's just, it is a state where you want to burn those more often and go on as many hunts as you can, because nowadays, especially, I mean, I would argue and say maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a significant difference between a 10-point hunt and a 2-point hunt. Like, yeah, you were getting a lot better bang for your buck. Now, honestly, you see some of the best bucks come out of that state out of 1-point, 2-point hunts. I mean, it's not as big of an issue at this point. So, yeah, I would say you're.
Well, and I've seen a lot of the deer in your basement, and it's motivated me to burn my measly little 2 points as soon as
Me
I
too.
can to go hunting.
Yeah.
Me too. I mean, I see yeah, exactly, Isaiah. I see the bucks that you and Robert and some other folks that are doing that with, 0 to 3-point units. And it's like, I know you guys get after it more than most, but the opportunity at those bucks, or, who knows, at that next class of deer that, they exist there. And
Yeah.
especially with the weather, they, and a lot of this, I'm regurgitating what I've heard from you guys, but like I said, I was habitual at, I'm just going to buy points until I get 10 and then look into my options. And now
Yeah.
it's like, I see that's not necessarily the best approach. So it's like, let's try and do it this year. With that being said, and we won't do it on this call for the sake of time, but we also want to have like a backup. If we do apply for Colorado and don't draw, like we want to hunt deer together this year, rifle. So it's like, what's our backup? What does the season dates allow us to do if we don't draw, that we can buy an OTC, or, what does that look like? So again, that's off call, but just a conversation we'll probably have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And along those backup lines, I mean, depending on what you wanted to do, if you just guys wanted to get together and have a fun hunt and go somewhere, I mean, there's always those second choice options like we talked about earlier. And there's still some hunts out there you can draw rifle tags second choice. I mean, they're getting a lot harder than they were to get a hold of, but that's still an option out there that you guys could put down and actually get to go hunt together.
For sure. So the last question on the list here that I'm looking at is trophy expectations. Is it out of line? I mean, that's a tough question to answer, but I mean, is it out of line if we want to start talking numbers and whatever? I know Trent's 190 or bust. Wants to
Trent's never
blast
even
it.
seen a 190 buck. Okay.
Hey, you guys killed a 200 in Montana. So
Yeah, but that was just
actually. I wish I hadn't said that live. I could go back and edit it and say, like, I don't know, New Mexico or something.
100%, 100%. Yeah.
Well, they killed the last one in Montana.
You're right.
Man, I've been hunting Montana my entire life, and I maybe have seen one on the hoof, and I think I was like 9 years old. So, yeah, they did well. But is it out of line with a couple points to be like, man, it'd be great to at least glass up a 170 plus buck on a hunt like this? Like, is that, and I know there's always, you can go find a 215 buck in Montana. They exist. I know some guys are killing them every few years and whatever, and you see pictures and it's like, but is that realistic, like a mid 170s plus buck on a hunt like that? Or is that like, if that's what you're looking for, you might as well stay home or get different goals?
No, I mean, honestly, like say, I've been hunting it for that many years, and that was always my target. And it still exists, even though the quality on average is down, and that's what everyone talks about. And it's a true statement. It is down compared to what it was 10 years ago, but there is still 170, 180, 190 for Trent running around in some of these 1 to 2 point units, So the good thing about Trent having those expectations is I think he can pack out a lot of animals in the amount of time that it's going to take him to find his 190. But if he found a 200 in Montana, he might be the first one to tag out.
So I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a fork and horn safe in that whole state. Okay?
Well, 170 is definitely doable. It's doable in every unit out there. So just know that it's not unrealistic at all. You just might have to find a nook and cranny and look over a bunch of deer before you actually turn one up, but realistic.
Cool.
Dylan, what I'll say, and we see a lot of hunters that come through the Huntin Fool office, submissions, stories, everything. And the guys that end up killing big deer in Colorado are the ones that hunt it the most often. I know that sounds really super simple, but if you can get on this 2-year rotation where you're training a tag every 2 years, and pretty soon you're learning areas, you're learning how to hunt with extreme hunting pressure, hunt the aspens, hunt the transition zones, you learn how to hunt, you will eventually run into a nice buck. And that's what drives us to go to Colorado and hunt it more often, not Arizona where I just want to wait for the best and go in and hold out for the biggest trophy. No, I want to hunt it as often as I can.
Cool.
Especially
I
the
like
way
it.
mule deer are going all over the West.
Yeah.
You need to go hunt now.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, cool. And yeah, I mean, like we said, obviously we'll dive into more specific like units later on. Anything else on your guys' end, questions, ideas? Like, you know, I know we could pull up draw odds and look at what units we, you know, that fall into that 0 to 1 category. I don't think we really need to do that now because we don't necessarily want to highlight the unit we are going to hunt. But anything else that would help you guys or just show like what a consultation would look like?
Sure. One thing I'll say, I mean, I'm a third party looking over Gar's shoulder a lot of today where we broke down a bunch of draw odds and looked at a bunch of units. And I think one thing that's interesting is, yeah, you're going to have 2 points, assuming you all 4 apply together. But we're looking at points that are, or units that are going to take 1 point to draw, or even 0 points to draw to be safe, right? And that's still not even a guarantee. Some of these odds with 1 point, you know, it was at say 30% last year, so that could jump past 2 points this year. It really could. So you don't have the license secured yet, and I think that's where you have to set the bar lower on your buffer of where you're shopping for hunts. And so guys will call in and say, you know, I've got this many points. Why are you suggesting a unit that's way under me, under my level? Well, that's the reality of everybody's saying the same thing right now. The season dates rolled really late last year, and now everybody that didn't get a license last year wants to go this year. And that's kind of the mess we're in. So keep that in mind as all of you are shopping for hunts in Colorado.
So is that kind of where you're talking as far as like we'll apply for maybe a 1 point tag, and then second choice like a 0 that took 0 last year or something, a little bit of a backup deal like that?
Yeah, we look at that. So based off that sequence of the draw, if it took even a percentage at 0 last year, probably a good likelihood it won't go second choice. But we look into that draw recap, and that's where we can see, all right, this hunt did have second choice tags issued last year, second choice licenses issued last year. And then you can put in for something like that. But yeah, that's where you would do that in that case, in case it jumps over what you guys had. And one thing I don't feel like I need to tell you guys this because you hunt a lot of over-the-counter archery elk, so you know what hunting pressure is. So it's not really a thing. But when you look at tag numbers, that's where I really say if you're not used to getting pressure or seeing people hunting the same ridge as you are, or hiking all morning in dark and get to a spot to glass, and then there's 3 or 4 people come out of the woodwork to shadow you and glass the same canyon. That's what you're going to start looking at is tag numbers. How many deer tags are there in here? And as I mentioned before, there's probably going to be some elk hunters doing the same thing, but sometimes you get a little separation the later in the year because the elk will stay a little higher, the deer start pulling a little lower. So just, yeah, tag numbers is one thing I usually like to tell people, but you guys, I mean, you know what hunting pressure is.
Sure.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, for the sake of time, I think we'll kind of transition back to the deck and then go into the Q&A. Just knowing we will definitely schedule a call between us and you guys and just kind of hash out the finer details. For the folks on the call, one of the things you probably, won't see during this is like the unit knowledge. One thing I'll say with Huntin Fool is they've hunted, I swear, somehow every single unit in the West multiple times, and they know it like the back of their hand. I can throw out a unit, and whether it's Garth or Isaiah or Robert or whoever, it's like, oh yeah, no, I hunted that one twice, and like, here's what it was back in 2012 and then 2016, and oh, that unit got shot out really bad last year because the winter, pushed everything into it, and they shot. Like the amount of knowledge, the unit knowledge is insane. So I know we'll dive into a lot of that on a different call, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Again, we don't want to blow up any specific units and make anything harder to draw than what it currently is. So yeah, with that being said, we can kind of transition back to the slides if you guys want to roll that up and get through some questions and
I don't know. I kind of want to have an announcement of the unit you guys decide to hunt, and then just kind of have a hunt finder search, you know, just have people out there almost like, what do they call it? Geocaching. See if they can find Trent's camp.
Be the Hunger Games after about the first day.
I'm sure people will be guessing if they watch the videos. We'll have to be extra sneaky.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna film the ground the whole time.
Yeah, I know. I pick up on that now when I see somebody just like no landscape panos or anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, they don't want anybody to know where they're at. Cool. So again, for anybody who maybe joined late, OnX does we'll give you a free digital membership to Huntin Fool with the OnX Elite membership. Ton of value add there. If you're not taking advantage of that right now, you're really missing out, especially right now in the middle of application season. We'll throw a link in the chat with, again, the landing page on that, more info, how to sign up, what that looks like. And then again, this is the third of 3 webinar masterclasses with Huntin Fool. The first 2 are currently on the OnX Hunt YouTube. This one will be on OnX Hunt YouTube shortly after this, I think tomorrow. So you can reference it, check out the other 2, especially if you're looking at just a holistic how to plan Western big game hunting strategy, application season stuff. The second one is focused on elk. So check those out if you have not already.
Q&A.
Sure.
Oh, last one, sorry. If we can go back to the giveaway. So for the folks still on the call, we really appreciate your guys' time. We recognize that we're running a little late here before we get into the Q&A. We're going to be doing a giveaway. We're going to give away 100 of these custom exclusive OnX Hunt bandanas. So check the link in the chat. Go ahead, put in your info, super easy. It'll just take a second, and then we'll select 100 folks and get those shipped out in a couple weeks. Again, note, if you are watching this after March 22nd, it is not live. The giveaway is already over, sorry. And Q&A. All right, so I've got a few here. First one, Trent and Steve. I'm a first-time hunter in Colorado. You guys are a huge inspiration in watching your videos for me. My question is, for a first-time hunter, what is some key equipment that you recommend?
Go ahead. I guess it would first depend on what type of hunt they're wanting to do, whether it's a backpack or a base camp hunt would be a good one. You know, backpack hunt would be definitely getting a little bit of, you know, decent gear established for that hunt, you know, just to make it more comfortable. If
But we've kind of come from a background of buy tags, not gear at certain times too. As far as like, you know, if you just go, man, the adventure of just going and trying something and, you know, dipping your feet in for the first time, and it's really easy for me to say having the nicest equipment out there. It's super easy for me to say that, but it's the truth. I mean, we used to have like Boy Scout backpacks and you know, just get a good pair of boots and stay warm. Just safety being the main thing. Get like OnX, something to keep you safe, and then just go have an adventure.
And what you can afford, you know, the best quality for what you can afford is a great starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it definitely, back in the day, it took us years building up quality gear over multiple years before we had higher end stuff. But definitely within your price range, that's the best within that price range is a good place to start.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think, you know, for a lot of us, like, you know, we have some fairly nice gear, and you look back on some of the hunts, it's like didn't really impede on the hunt to not have a pair of $400 boots. You just did what you did with $80 pair of boots.
Yep.
So yeah, I would totally second that. Cool. So this one probably for the Huntin Fool team. How do they allocate tags for the second? Let's see. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. How do they allocate tags for the second to fourth choice? After they fulfill the first choice, is it random draw for second to fourth, where you don't use your points, or how does that work?
So you don't use your points, but it's not necessarily a random draw. I mean, it is a random draw within your choices, right? So if there's X amount of applicant that had the same choice as their second, yeah, they'll do a random draw to exhaust the number of permits that are left. But if they don't exhaust those during the second choice, then they'll obviously roll into the third choice, and then they'll exhaust that at that point, just depending on how many tags are remaining. But yeah, there's no point merit at that point because they're not taking your points at all.
Gotcha. Okay. Another one. So thoughts on units 18 versus 28. And again, we'll probably keep this high level so we don't blow up a specific unit. Thoughts on units 18 versus 28 for mule deer, second and third seasons. Now that it has been 2 years since the troublesome fire in 18, do you think the hunting will be awesome? That said, 28 seems to have a little more private and less roads.
I wouldn't say awesome by any stretch, because if you look at the number of tags in there, you're going to have hunters on top of hunters. And it is one of the closest, say, over-the-counter elk units available outside of like that Denver, Fort Collins front range area. So it gets bombarded both with elk hunters, and they issue, I mean, thousands of tags for deer as well. So yeah, the fire could make a difference because it's going to be coming back. In fact, I had a friend that hunted that last year. They hunted the edge of the fire, and they didn't do as well in 18. Once they gravitated over towards 28 and actually dropped below in 37, which is part of that unit grouping, they found a nice buck in there. But that hunt is never going to be an amazing hunt. I mean, it can produce some amazing bucks, but that's probably one of the most pressured units or pressured hunts between the second or third that there is in Colorado. If that answers the question, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think totally does. Born and raised. I'm a successful Washington hunter, not myself, the person asking the question. I've hunted bear in Washington, and I did fill that tag, but that's it. I'm a successful Washington hunter who filled both elk and deer tags almost every year. I moved to Colorado 3 years ago, and I have been skunked every year. Do you have any tips?
Move back. It's tough. I think as depending on where he was at in Washington, I don't know if he was in the east side or west side, I think Roosevelt's, we tend to like hunt them a little bit differently than Rockies as far as like, we know where they're going to be. They kind of go in the same places every year. And, as far as the Rocky sides of things, if we go to Colorado, we'll have at least in the unit that we're going to go into, or where, within a close proximity, we'll have at least 3 spots. So you can find out they're a giant animal, and you can see where they've been. If they're not where you think they should be within the first day and a half of being there and making a 11-mile loop or whatever you're doing, move. Yeah. I mean, just keep moving, and you will find them within, I would say, 3 spots. Yeah. You're going to find them. It's just keep mobile would be our biggest advice. Like, we'll sometimes drive clear across the whole state overnight and then hit another trailhead the next morning and take off hiking on it and finally find them. But if they're not there, they're not going to just materialize out of nothing.
That's one thing we've learned for us from coming from hunting Roosevelt's to Rockies is we definitely cover a lot more ground and bounce around a lot more trying to find the elk, because they definitely cover a lot more area than the Roosevelt elk do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've even seen that in Montana. Like last year, I just did not find the elk where we typically do. And it's like you can bang your head against the wall and keep hunting that spot expecting them to be there because they were last year, or you can move. And so lately that approach has been really working as well. Just staying mobile. If they're not there, they're not there. And go check somewhere else. You're going to find them. So another question here, not one more, we'll have a handful more. Driving from a couple states over, can you talk about meat care and coolers? I think everybody would probably have kind of their own approach, what works for them or what hasn't worked maybe in the past.
That's a big one, actually, as far as just like, I think there's a lot of planning that goes into out-of-state hunting and a lot of things that you can go through, but it's at the end of the day, meat care is number one.
Yeah.
It's every single time meat care is number one. And so we'll kill something and it could be anywhere from 3 to, 8-10 miles back in. And you need to be checking on that every single day. If you have it hanging in a creek or something like that, or some, cool, damp spot or something like that. As soon as you have any inclination of that, it's not, this isn't good. You got to pack it out.
Yeah.
You have to have a meat set. And we've only had a meat packer, maybe a few different
Couple
times.
times at the most.
Usually there's enough of us that we can just all grab a chunk and get it out and take it to town, get it in a cooler. And, a lot of people, can say, oh, I've hung stuff for 10 days in super hot conditions and everything. That may be the case, but we don't screw around with that side of things.
And two, if we're bouncing from state to state, if we're lucky enough to harvest something early in the season, we usually like to try to process our own meat. But if we have to, we'll find a butcher, we'll have it processed, taken care of, get it frozen so we can get it home.
And
Totally.
I'll just tell you guys this.
So
You guys aren't going to have to worry about that on your rifle hunt.
Perfect. It'll be cold.
it'll
Can
be
you
frozen.
cut a frozen solid deer ham? I don't know how that works.
I've been told that it ages the same when it freezes solid. And we've had instances where we've hung it during a third season hunt, and 100% that thing is solid as a rock by the end of the hunt.
Crazy. So I'll follow up that with another question, Trent or Steve, like once it's in the cooler. So I know everybody has their thing. Like some people are like, man, do not let that meat get wet. Some people are like, it's not that big of a deal if it gets moisture on it, if it's in a cooler. I've never had a poor issue with so what I usually do is I don't put it in a trash bag. I'll put the meat in the cooler, game bag, ice all the way around it, and just leave the cooler cracked a little bit so there's never any standing water. Like it'll just keep flowing out as the ice is melting, keep adding ice. But I've never had any issues myself with the meat, like ice touching the game bag, which is touching the meat. What have you guys experienced there?
Yeah, I'm not. You're talking about just a regular igloo or Yeti cooler.
Yeah, like a Yeti, like
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not a giant fan of getting my meat wet. I like to have that crust, and so we always say this too. If you're over 1.5 miles, you can pack out the bone. Okay, if you're over that 1.5 mile area, you can bone it out. You can do that. But I love to hang it with the bone in, and it just hangs so much better. And I don't like stacking meat upon meat upon meat a lot of times. So I like to get that blood all drained out of it as much as I can. And especially like in a cooler, I think you tipped on it right there as far as having that little bit of a vapor barrier, whether it be cardboard, whether it be something in between that meat and just touching that ice is just, I think there definitely needs to be something there. Yes.
Gotcha. Cool. And your guys' game bags, do you have any in stock? What does that look like?
Our last one's lasted for 55 minutes. So that was our last shipment for the month. So that was pretty cool. No, we are constantly trying to up that ante, and with everything and the way it is right now, as far as shipping and everything, it's just gonna kind of been a tall ask, but we are getting them in every single month and almost every 2 weeks now. So we're up in that. We're up in the ante too, as far as numbers wise. So everybody, cool. Hopefully, if you stay on, the website and just, we usually put it out there when we're going to put them out and stuff, you should be able to get a set before season.
It's got to be pretty much like buying that leftover Colorado tag. People just logging in and trying to get them in the cart.
Pretty much is what it seems like lately. Yeah.
Perfect. And yeah, for folks on that, aren't aware, haven't seen them, Born and Raised does make their own game bags. They're very unique. It's not just the run-of-the-mill game bag. Check them out if you haven't.
They're pretty rad.
That being said, I don't personally have any myself, so we'll have to figure that out. But
I know once we give everybody else in the country one, we're gonna go OnX and Hunting Fool. Got them both covered. We got you covered.
Perfect. We might use them in Colorado this year if we draw.
There you go.
Cool. Huntin Fool, this one's probably for you guys. So if you want to draw a cow tag in area 4, there's either sex tags and cow tags available. Should I put the cow tag as first choice if the numbers are better? Basically, yeah, should this person put the cow tag first, or it sounds like, is there an opportunity to draw the cow tag, maybe second choice or something like that?
Well, I guess it depends on what he wants to, like if he wants an antlered animal, then no, I would not. But if he's okay with just a cow, I mean, yeah, I mean, you put that as a first choice. The one thing to remember is in that primary draw, you can only draw one tag in that primary draw. So you can have an A tag and a B tag. Typically your cow tags, well, I should say typically, a lot of times your cow tags are B tags, but you can't draw an either sex as your first choice and then roll into your second choice just because there was, remaining cow tags left and it's a B tag. You still can't draw that on the primary draw. So if he was okay with a cow, yeah, I would put in for that, cow tag as a first choice just to kind of secure it, unless the either sex is just as good a draw odds, then I'd put the either sex. Then you got the option, if you do run into a bull, you get to take a bull.
Yep. Perfect. So I know you guys born and raised have hunted Colorado for elk. This one might not pertain. So do you have any tips for hunting Western Colorado? Never hunted that terrain. Want to learn more about tactics. And obviously, depending on where we apply and if we draw, we'll kind of have the same question. If it's Western Colorado, what is kind of the tactic? Is find a good glassing knob and sit all day long? Is it hike until your legs fall off? And what does that look like?
Is that for us or hunting? Is that for us?
So I think we'll go Huntin Fool on that one because it's I think it's pertaining to Western Colorado.
Yeah.
Like more like I think they referred to it as desert terrain. So unless you guys were hunting elk out in desert terrain, probably not.
I guess you'd have to classify like the desert terrain. I'm assuming he's talking about pinyon, juniper, sage, like low elevation, kind of chasing them around in that type of country. And I guess depending on if it's rut, like during an archery hunt or a rifle hunt, obviously your tips or tactics can change a little bit from that. I mean, I know me personally, if it's going to be later in the year and I'm going to go on a rifle hunt, second, third season, everything changes if I get snow. I mean, then it's all about tracking, locating, trying to figure out where where they're going, where they're going to be, things like that. Obviously, if there's no snow and you still have those late season hunts, I don't know. I mean, you're just basically reading sign. It's hard to glass a lot of that when it's thick PJ. So the binos, I'm not saying that they're not useless, but what I'm saying is you got to be a little bit more strategic about where you plan to spot from. You have to stop, move, glass this canyon, move to that canyon. And that changes during archery season. I mean, if they're talking, you're just running a gun and same thing, only it's hotter to get around in, a little bit easier to get around in, less steep. I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Cool. We had a couple questions come over about e-scouting, what to look for. Obviously we could do an e-scouting webinar on this and just that could be 4 hours by itself. But one of the things, just having looked at some of that terrain and looking at the map of some of those 0 to 3 point units, kind of my strategy going into it. And again, I haven't done this because we haven't narrowed down a unit and e-scouted it. Obviously going to see if we draw it before we really dive into spending hours e-scouting it. But one of the things in Montana I found really successful lately is looking, kind of using mostly topo at first, topo or 3D, and drawing out with the line tool, kind of like the ridges. So how can I effectively put in 10 to 12 miles today and like actually, I'm not hiking up and down drainages or canyons and burning myself out, especially as you look at some of these. If we go to Colorado, we'll probably be there for 5 days or the season length. How can I use my time and my energy effectively? And it's like, okay, here's a really good ridge system. And if I look, especially in 3D, it looks like multiple good glassing points. So what I've done in Montana the last couple times, and even in areas that I've hunted for years, and it's like, oh, I know that area, I don't need to e-scout it. Well, e-scouting has helped me hunt it so much better and actually kill couple of my best deer to date. It's like, use that line tool, follow those ridges, and do it on every ridge system possible, because you might get somewhere when you're there and look and be like, oh, if I hop over, or maybe if I do go down and up, then I'm on this ridge system, and I actually preemptively plan that out, and I have like 4 or 5 glassing waypoints over there. So there's a lot of pressure over here. I'm going to hop over there, hit that other line that I, did on the computer 2 months ago, and check those glassing points, and just kind of plan out a whole day like that. So that would be, obviously we have to draw on everything, but if we get to that point, something that I look at doing here. Anybody else have any e-scouting tips, tactics as it pertains to Colorado?
I'll throw one out there, Dylan. This is Austin. One thing that was different for me before I ever hunted Colorado was you're going into a state that is very recreational based. I don't know the right term for it, but when I'm e-scouting that, I'm looking at those recreation sites and developed trails and how many cars are parked at trailheads and all that stuff, because it is out of control in Colorado. I mean, I've got to the point where some of the trailheads I've hit, there's 50 to 100 cars parked there, mostly just hikers, right? Just recreationalists that are there. And you're like, wait, this is hunting season. Don't they know? I'm wearing orange and these guys are just hiking. Like, it's more than you think. Even though there's some really remote, big country, there's wilderness areas, there's steep, high elevation, there's probably people all over it. And so when I'm e-scouting, I'm thinking about that. Yeah, it may help you because there is a developed trail to get to that basin you want to go to, but it also may overwhelm you with the amount of people that are hiking that trail day in, day out. That's August through October. Once it starts getting cold, you don't see as many. It turns more just to OHVs and ATV riders and all that, but it is very popular. Those guys like to get out. It's it's a growing sport. So you need to realize that when you're e-scouting, that you're probably not the only one in that basin. Even if you're the only hunter, I would say recreationalists, especially September, October, are like 4 to 1 in some of those units. That's more recreational versus hunters.
That's crazy. And as you were talking, Austin, there was like a dozen chats popping up saying, I can confirm this. This is very true, like very accurate. I mean, there's more coming up as we speak. So that is one thing to consider that usually I don't have to take into account. When I hunted bear in Washington a couple seasons ago, it was like that. I saw a lot of hikers. People were like, what are you guys doing? As we're sitting there glassing with a rifle off of a trail, like you guys can hunt bears here? Like, what is this? What are you doing? And it was pretty foreign to me. Like in Montana, if I'm running into somebody when I'm hunting, 99% chance they're hunting. So that is good to know ahead of time, maybe to not be so discouraged by a trailhead that has 15 vehicles in it, knowing 14 might be hikers. But also a very interesting, element to the hunt that usually I haven't had to. Trent, Steve, have you guys ran into that much where you guys are like archery elk hunting?
So, yeah, it just depends. It just depends. There's a lot of times, you run into a lot of people. Our state, generally it's so thick, you're not going to run into just recreational guys out there. It's going to be hunters. But states we have, Steve, you hunted in, where was it, California? And it was on the
hunted blacktails
Crest Trail or whatever.
The Pacific Crest Trail ran into a lot of hikers hiking from Mexico to Canada. I mean, we only saw like 2 other hunters, but we saw, I can't think of how many people hiking the Pacific Crest Trail.
So yeah, we
just
do
different
that.
areas you'll run into it.
We have before, yeah. You guys touched on hunter's orange as far as like, what's the ruling on as far as Colorado? I know each state's a little different. What is Colorado's rifle hunter's orange laws?
So you got to have, I always say there's a square inch, but you have to have a orange hat. That's a must. And then I usually just like, if it's a blaze orange vest, you have to have a blaze orange vest and a hat. It's so many square inches, but I can't remember that. But as long as you have a vest and a hat, you're good. But it is absolute on the hat.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, that's always good to know, and state to state changes. I see a few folks in the chats saying 500 square inch, so we'll look into that, but looks like that's probably the case, 500 square. So we'll do another question or two and kind of wrap it up. Again, if we haven't got to your question live, we'll do our best to answer them through chat or after the fact. And if you have any OnX specific like account questions or billing questions, anything like that, make sure to email help@onxmaps.com. We'll get to you a lot quicker that way. Does anybody here, so I'm not quite familiar with this, but is Huntin Fool or you guys, Trent, are you guys familiar with ranching for wildlife? Does that ring a bell?
Heard of
Yeah.
it, don't know much about it.
Well, ranching for wildlife, I mean, as far as, I don't know what the question is exactly, but only residents can apply for them of Colorado in the draw. Non-residents can hunt ranching for wildlife, but it's a pay to play. They can buy those tags. And basically what a ranching for wildlife is a big block of private land. Sometimes it has a little bit of public land that's like incorporated into it. And the state issues them a certain amount of tags, and they give them a bigger window, a bigger season date, so that they can cycle hunters through and allow them to come in and hunt their private land. But basically it's its own unit. I mean, they exist in certain units, but it's exempt from all other tag holders that have like just a tag in that unit. It's its own unit. So, but only residents can apply for it. Non-residents have to buy it from the landowner or the outfitter.
Gotcha. And actually through chat, a few folks were saying they must be residents, resident only on that one, it looks like.
Yep.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I think question wise, that kind of rounds out the majority of the focal point questions, unless you guys have any, and then we can kind of just kick it around for final thoughts and close it up. Any questions on your guys' end that you saw unanswered?
One thing I'll say, Dylan, that I've seen, and this was brought up by a few viewers, but everything changes in these states. And this is one reason why Huntin Fool exists and will remain in the space is, yeah, we share all this information and all these season dates, and undoubtedly it's going to change. The states are up in arms all across the West to revisit how the draw happens, how points work, how tags are allocated, what species they care about, which ones they don't. So keep in mind that when you're watching this, we're talking sitting here March 2022, but it may be totally different. And so you've got to stay up on that, and your plans may have to change, your expectations may have to change, and realize that a source like ourselves, we're going to do our best to tell you the truth, but it's based off of what we know right now and not speculations out of commission meetings and proposals, which every state has. But that's what keeps us busy. We love our jobs and we want people to find more opportunities, but come to us to get the freshest information that is available.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Montana this year just, they changed a ton, obviously. And it could have been much worse as far as the number of changes go and everything. And I mean, it's not even, I'm not going to say it's not out of the question, but it is possible, right? Like Colorado could even say, just kidding, we're not doing preference points, we're going to do bonus points down the road. Like, and whatever you have for preference points is now bonus points. And the only reason I can like say that, obviously that would be a drastic change, but I don't think anything is completely out of the question. You guys have a lot better pulse on that, but it's crazy to see some of these changes and how they affect. I mean, Wyoming this year, what was, I feel like there was something in Wyoming, maybe it was another state, or was it Utah, where they eliminated points if you didn't buy something changed.
That
like
was
I thought.
Montana. That was your
that-
state that did
That was
that.
Montana.
Yeah, that was Montana.
See,
No,
like
Well, I think
there's
Wyoming on the Big Five, they went to a 90-10, which is like
That's what
me
it
for
was.
non-residents. I got a lot of moose points, but that just kicked me out another 10, 12, 13 years when it would have been 5 or 6. So
Yeah.
that's
brutal,
one I was
but-
thinking of in Wyoming, and like you said, Garth, Montana did that. Like it's so hard to keep up, and life is busy, and just whatever you've got going on, it's hard to keep up, and that's where it's really awesome to flip through a magazine or an e-magazine, or if you guys have the membership, call you guys and chat through those changes. Because you might once you get it dialed, it's going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inevitably.
Don't wait
Well,
too
and that's
long.
what I think too, like talking with you guys as far as like Austin just talked about, what I love about it, you guys are realistic. It's not like, hey, you give me some money and I'm going to just get you all these good tags and everything. You guys are realistic about it. And it's like, that's pretty awesome as far as moving forward. I think, we're going to definitely do a lot more with you guys.
I look forward to
Appreciate
it.
it.
Awesome. Any final thoughts, Trent, Steve? I know we'll be chatting shortly. Colorado draw's coming up, and we need to figure out where we're applying, what season and everything. So I know we'll all be jumping on a call shortly and diving in more in depth, but anything else to add?
I just want to say thank you guys
Yeah.
so much for taking the time.
Thanks a
And
lot.
it's been awesome and a wealth of knowledge.
Well, we
Awesome.
appreciate it on this end. Like I say, it's nice to touch base with guys like you. And we just love helping. We just love helping out where we can. I mean, honestly, I got excited talking to you guys. I was wanting to go through and just figure it out while we were.
Well, realistic expectations on 190 deer. That's what we like to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah. That's we're all about it.
That's not a steep hill to climb. I mean, come on. That's,
Love it.
no, I would be so happy with the 165 deer, honestly.
I love it. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate everybody who has stayed on for this whole time. Again, we'll do our best to answer your questions at one point or another through the chat, and be looking for more webinars to come. So again, we have one tentatively planned with Born and Raised Outdoors, specifically about elk calling, what their strategy is. Obviously, they're incredibly successful. What do they do calling elk? What do they listen for? How do they use maps to fill their tags year after year? So be looking for more to come. And just can't thank everybody enough for the time, both on this call with Born and Raised Outdoors, Huntin Fool, and everybody who tuned in. So with that, we will see you guys, and thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.